Max is standing in the grocery store parking lot. Engine off. He hasn't gone inside yet. He's looking at his banking app. Not scrolling, not checking messages, just looking at one number with the specific kind of stillness that happens when a number says something you already knew but weren't ready to confirm. He puts the phone face down on the passenger seat, takes a breath, picks it back up, looks again. Then he goes inside and buys what's on the list. Ground beef, pasta. The store-brand pasta, not the one he used to buy. It's a Tuesday in February. He's 47. He has a job, a house, a marriage that's mostly good, 2 kids who are fine. By every visible measure, Max is okay. He just doesn't feel okay. And the strangest part, he can't entirely explain why. There is a number that gets passed around in financial media, like it means something. The average net worth of an American in their mid-40s is approximately $230,000. Maybe you've seen that figure. Maybe it made you feel behind. Maybe it made you feel okay. Either way, it almost certainly made you feel something, which is exactly why it keeps getting published. But here's what they don't tell you. That number is almost completely fictional for most people. Wealth in America is so unevenly distributed that using an average to describe it is like averaging the age of everyone in a room and declaring the room is 34. Meanwhile, half the people in the room are 60 and a handful are children. The average is accurate and it tells you almost nothing real. The number that actually describes the middle, the median, is $168,000 for Americans between 45 and 54. And when you look inside that number, it gets harder to look at. Most of that $168,000 isn't liquid, it isn't free, it isn't sitting somewhere waiting to help anyone. The majority of it is home equity, the theoretical distance between the mortgage balance and whatever Zillow says the house might be worth today. For most Gen X households, that equity is real the way a winning lottery ticket is real before you cash it. Technically valuable, practically inaccessible without taking on new debt or selling the place you live. Strip out the house. What's left? The median retirement account balance for a Gen X household, a generation that was explicitly told they were responsible for funding their own retirement because pensions were going away and the 401k was the future, sits somewhere between $40,000 and $67,000 depending on the study. Let that land for a second. Financial planners generally recommend having 3 times your annual salary saved by your mid-40s. The median Gen X household income is roughly $85,000. That target is around $255,000. The median balance is less than a quarter of that. That's not a retirement fund, that's a contingency plan that runs out in under 2 years. Max checks his 401k about twice a year, maybe 3. He opens the app, looks at the number, feels something he can't name, and closes it. Not because he doesn't care, because caring too much about something you feel powerless over is its own kind of exhaustion. Psychologists have a name for this. It's called financial avoidance, and it's not laziness. It's a self-protective response to chronic low-grade stress. When a problem feels too large and too slow to solve, the brain learns to look away. Not because the person gave up, but because looking directly at it every day is unsustainable. This is why millions of Americans have banking notifications turned off, why they delete the retirement plan emails, why they wait 2 weeks to open certain envelopes. It's not irresponsibility, it's exhaustion wearing the mask of irresponsibility. And the exhaustion is earned because the math, when you actually do it, keeps getting harder. The average American household carries about $104,000 in debt. Mortgage, car loans, credit cards, student loans, some of which for Gen X belong to their own adult children because they co-signed to help, and now the help has a monthly payment attached to it.
Healthcare for a middle-class family of 4. Not a disaster year, just a normal year with regular checkups and 1 urgent care visit. Now runs somewhere between $22,000 and $25,000 annually when you add up premiums, deductibles, and out-of-pocket costs. That's before the dentist. Before the Crown that insurance covers 60% of, and 60% of $1,800 still means someone's putting $720 on a credit card in March and telling themselves they'll pay it off before interest kicks in. Car ownership, which is not optional in most of America, which was built around the assumption that you have a car, costs the average household over $12,000 per year when you factor in payments, insurance, fuel, and maintenance. For a two-car family, double it. Groceries that cost $180 in 2019 cost roughly $230 today. Same cart, same store, different number at the register that you absorb without saying anything, because what is there to say? Max stands at the Costco checkout sometimes and watches the total climb past $300 and thinks, we didn't even buy anything special. From 2020 to 2025, the cumulative cost of just existing in America, shelter, food, utilities, transportation, insurance, climbed somewhere between 20 and 25% for the average household. Wages for middle-income workers grew during that same period. They did, but not proportionally, not evenly, and not in ways that tracked with the specific costs that hit the middle class hardest: housing, healthcare, childcare, education. What that means in practical, lived terms is this: the paycheck that felt tight in 2019 feels genuinely insufficient in 2026, even if the number on it is technically higher. Max got a 3% raise 2 years ago. He remembers being grateful. He also remembers that his homeowner's insurance renewal that same month went up 19%. The mortgage got smaller. Everything else got bigger. Here is something that almost never gets said in financial content, so let's say it directly. There is a specific and particular cruelty to being exactly in the middle. You make too much money to qualify for meaningful assistance. You make too little money to feel genuinely secure. You're above the line where any system extends a hand, and below the line where any of this becomes comfortable. You're not in crisis, so nobody notices. You're not wealthy, so nothing gets easier. And the most invisible part of all of it, you feel ashamed to say any of this out loud, because from the outside, your life looks fine. The house is there, the cars are there, the kids are dressed, the lawn is cut, you made it to the school thing last week. The performance of okayness is so complete and so constant that eventually you stop being able to tell where the performance ends and the actual feeling begins. That is the specific psychological weight of middle-class financial stress in 2026. It doesn't look like distress, it looks like a Tuesday. There is an analogy that explains the feeling more precisely than any statistic. Imagine a treadmill. You've been on it for 20 years. You're not walking slowly, you're working, you're keeping up, but the treadmill has been quietly, incrementally speeding up the entire time. Not fast enough to throw you off, just fast enough that you're working harder every year to stay in exactly the same place. And from outside, through the window, it looks like you're just running. It looks like progress. It looks fine. That is the middle-class experience right now. The machine got faster. The effort stayed invisible. The destination didn't change. According to Pew Research, roughly 6 in 10 adults in their 40s and 50s have provided financial support to a grown child in the past year. A similar number has helped a parent, and a significant portion of those people, roughly 1 in 4, have done both simultaneously while also trying to maintain their own financial lives. There's a term for this, the sandwich generation. It sounds almost gentle, like something from a lifestyle magazine. It is not gentle. It is 2 directions of financial pull with 1 paycheck in the middle. It is co-signing your kid's apartment lease at the same time you're quietly covering your mom's prescriptions. It is nodding when someone asks how the family's doing and saying, everyone's good, just busy, because the true answer is too long and too heavy for a hallway conversation.
Max's mom called last month. Nothing dramatic. She never asks directly. But he heard something in the pauses, and when he hung up, he sat at the kitchen table for a while, very still. He moved $400 to her account the next morning. He didn't mention it to his wife, not to hide it, just because explaining it would have made it feel like a problem, and he needed it to just be something he did quietly and moved on from. Here is the part where you expect a turn, some data point about people who recovered, a framework, a 5-step system. That's not what this is. Before we talk about what's possible, something needs to be said out loud, because the financial conversation in America almost never says it directly. The pressure you feel is not a personal failure. There is a version of self-help in America that has been running for decades, and it contains a quiet lie at its center. The lie is that financial outcomes are primarily a function of personal choices. That if you're struggling, you bought too much house, or you leased the car, or you didn't start the Roth early enough, or you ordered too much takeout in your 30s. And yes, decisions matter. Compounding is real. Habits have consequences. But there is something deeply dishonest about placing the full weight of systemic economic failure on the shoulders of individuals who are navigating that system in real time. Gen X entered the workforce during the savings and loan collapse, built their careers through the dot-com implosion, bought homes right before or right through the 2008 financial crisis, the worst economic event since the Great Depression, raised their kids during a decade of wage stagnation, then absorbed a pandemic and a post-pandemic inflation surge that erased years of modest gains in under 18 months. That is not a generation that failed. That is a generation that kept getting hit and kept getting up, quietly, without making much noise about it, because that's what you do. The reason Max feels behind isn't a character flaw. The rules changed, slowly, while everyone was busy working. Think about a ship that's been 2 degrees off course for 20 years, not dramatically off, 2 degrees. After long enough, 2 degrees becomes a completely different destination. The ship wasn't broken, the captain wasn't reckless, but the accumulated drift over enough time and distance ends somewhere no one planned to be. That's where a lot of Gen X households find themselves in 2026. Not in crisis, not shipwrecked, just not where they expected. And unlike a ship, there's no pulling over to recalculate. The mortgage is still due Friday. The insurance renewal is in the mail. Life keeps moving, whether the math is working or not. So, what is actually honest to say about recovery from here? The uncomfortable true answer is, some things are not recoverable on a timeline that feels emotionally satisfying. If you are 47 and you have $45,000 in retirement savings, you are not going to feel financially secure by 55. That is not pessimism, that is arithmetic, and anyone who tells you otherwise is selling you something. But here is what is also true, and this part matters. 15 to 20 years of consistent investing is not a small thing. From 47 to 65 or 67, even modest consistent contributions compound into real, meaningful money. Not life-changing, not yacht money, but the difference between retiring at 67 with $180,000 and retiring with $380,000 is often a few $100s a month sustained. That difference in monthly income during retirement is material. It is the difference between okay and afraid. Home equity, even though it's locked and inaccessible right now, remains a legitimate part of a later financial picture. Downsizing at 62 or 65 is not a failure. For many households, it becomes the most important financial decision of their entire lives. And this is worth acknowledging clearly. Americans between 45 and 55 are statistically at or near their peak earning years. This window, right now, is the highest income decade most households will ever see. That is real. Using it with even modest intentionality has compounding consequences that extend 2 decades forward.
The goal is not to become wealthy. The goal is to stop the drift, to get 2 degrees back on course, to make sure that the gap between where you are and where you need to be is closing, even slowly rather than quietly widening. It's late now. The kitchen is clean, Max's kids have gone upstairs, his wife is in the other room, and he's standing at the sink finishing the last of the dishes the way he always does, without being asked, without being thanked, without making it a thing. He dries his hands on the dish towel and looks out the window above the sink. It's dark outside, just his own reflection looking back at him through the glass. A 47-year-old man in a kitchen he worked for, in a life he built that doesn't feel as stable as it looks from the outside. He's not panicking. He's past the age of panic. Panic is loud and panic is young, and what Max feels is quieter and older than that. It's the specific weight of knowing that the window isn't infinite, that time is actually moving, and that the distance between where he is and where he needs to be is not going to close by itself. But here is what else is true about Max. He got up this morning, he went to work, he bought the groceries, he helped his kid with something after dinner. He moved money he didn't have to spare to someone who needed it without being asked. He has been doing all of this, steadily, without applause, for years. He is not where he thought he'd be, but he is still here, still moving, still showing up for a life that keeps asking more of him than it was supposed to. That is not nothing. That is quietly almost everything. You are not crazy for feeling this way. The pressure is real. The numbers are real. The system that was supposed to reward people like you for doing everything right has been quietly, systematically making it harder, and it did that while you were too busy surviving to notice. But you are still in the window. The runway is shorter than it was, but it is not gone. And the most important question isn't where you started or even where you are. It's whether you're still moving. Max is. Are you?